Um, I want to ask, what do you think the Chinese government's role in Sudan, and what will be the Google policy for Chinese users? Because I know Chinese Google search have some censorship in China.
So this is a product that's available on Google.com. Google.com is is a source based in the United States, and so it's available to anyone around the world, in China, in Europe, in South America, in the United States, who wants to get it and who can get access to it. So we're making this available without any filtering or any restrictions whatsoever.
I'm Mark Brender with a satellite imaging company called GeoEye. What are the plans to, because satellites operate in non-sovereign space, governments don't have any control over where and what they image. What are the plans from the museum and from Elliott take this to other bad places where evil things are happening around the world, either humanitarian-wise or environmentally?
Well, I can certainly speak for Google Earth. We on behalf of Google and Google Earth, we want to do partnerships on a wide range of issues. And in fact, frankly, we've begun those. We have a very interesting project with the United Nations Environmental Program where we highlight, using the satellite imagery and the geospatial data, issues of environmental concern. We have partnerships with or projects where environmental organizations around the United States and in the West use Google Earth to highlight areas of particular concern for them. I would actually highlight one other point. We were talking about promoting awareness and understanding and encouraging action. One of the beauties of the internet, and Google Earth is no different from any of these other products, is that it creates a new community of interest, a community of conscience, but also a community of conscience on the web. And so as interesting as all of our answers might be about what kind of actions might get generated, I think the really exciting thing about this partnership, or one of the really exciting things, is to see what the users do as a result, what ideas they come up with, what ideas they share with each other, what other overlays they may put on about information they have. And I think that really, the power of that network effect of sharing information among users, I think is one that's very exciting and may create new projects in other areas, new overlays in other regions, as well as new forms of action or advocacy around the crisis in Darfur.
Well, I'll add on to that to say wherever John and his staff are investigating the threat of genocide worldwide, we hope to support through this kind of technology, high-resolution satellite imagery and other data.
And I was just going to say, we're already doing this in a number of different ways, including a weekly podcast series called Voices of Genocide Prevention, where we interview leading figures around the world who are engaged in preventing genocide.
But we should also add that in response to what Elliot just said, we are, people who come to us through this, we are introducing people to other people who care about this issue. And so we are creating a sense of community among people who would otherwise never come together, and now it will be worldwide thanks to Google.
And what's really key for us, just to add one more thing, is it really helps us achieve our two goals. One is reaching out to the foreign policy professionals. We've shown this to a number of people at the UN as well as the State Department and different agencies within the U.S. government, and they see the real value of collectively bringing together this information. But you can have the best information in the world, and that necessarily won't ignite political will to do what's needed to stop, let's say, genocide in Darfur or other places. So it's real critical that this reaches out to the masses, to the public at large, that hopefully will have some influence in terms of creating the political will among the decision makers that can stop this.
Hi, Jim Puzangara from the LA Times. In terms of the visualizing potential of this, Ms. Bloomfield, you mentioned the difficulties prior to World War II and during World War II of educating people about what was happening in Europe. I imagine that's been the case with a number of other episodes of genocide. What is the power of being able to see the scope and size of events like this in places that people aren't normally very familiar with?
Yeah, I would say that we have found, sadly, that even with a lot of visual information about genocide, and I'm talking now about post-Holocaust genocides, that the difference has been somewhat, but not what we would have hoped when the world said never again in 1945. So that leaves institutions like ours saying, how do you crack this nut? How do you build both understanding and empathy, which I think are prerequisite to getting a real constituency of conscience and the ability to act. And that is a real challenge for this institution. So technology gives us a whole new opportunity. I mean, we try to obviously do it with the 25 million people who have been through our doors or come to our website, about 15 million people last year. But this, as Larry said, enables us to go to people who would never think to come to us, would never think they're interested, and I think to present it in a different way. We've learned something from talking to our visitors here. Many of them have said in some early focus groups we did that, I knew something about the Holocaust before I came to your museum. I'd studied it, I read about it, but I understood it differently. And they refer a lot to the way the history is personalized through the presentation of so many original artifacts and creating a unique experience for them that I would say is a combination of both intellectual, there's a learning element, and emotional that they begin to feel for the victims. Now we're trying to see if we can do that on technology for today's victims.
It also continues the trend that the internet started of putting information closer to the end user. So you can see that last night even people were blogging already about this. 2 years ago we didn't have blogging the way we have it now. So personally, I don't know. I'm hopeful that that whole culture of using information when just in time when you're ready to use it, when you've got a cause, and there's information like this that you can turn to and get other people excited about, that's a different world. That didn't exist even 2 years ago. And I think that that's the power of this technology.
Any more questions?
Okay. Well, thank you very much.